Giving yourself discipline in your life, you're giving yourself a structure, something to work towards, goals, things like that. As you say, sitting on that couch, it's not going to do you any good at all. It's it has to be looked at, certainly, by the government, if you ask me.
I agree with you. I think I'd love it to see, okay, the government will argue, well, for example, through Sport Scotland, we give money to amateur boxing. And so it's a hands-off kind of deal. There's the money, you get on with it. Of course, in Scotland, and you'll know about my criticism of Boxing Scotland, that goes, I think, in the main, to the elite boxers. And the boxing clubs who pay a lot of money every year for their registration, the registration of the club, of the boxers, for their medical cards, child protection certificates and courses that they all have to go through. They're kind of laying out a heap of money. These boxing clubs have got to knock on doors of potential sponsors and said, can you give us a couple £100, or could you help us with this? Can we do that? And they shouldn't have to do that.
No, 100%. Guys like you've got like Terry McCormick, Bert McShane, the guys know who I'm talking about here. They're the unsung heroes. They should be getting spoke about. As she says, money goes to boxing Scotland, only goes to elite boxers.
Yeah.
Don't know, there's some guys in there that are doing a cracking job. Stephen Simmons, Ricky Burnswell. I mean, I don't know the other guys, but they do a great job, some of them, but there's a few that I don't know. But as I say, it's the unsung heroes that don't get spoke about enough, the guys at the clubs who are doing it for nothing.
Yeah.
They do it for absolute, to keep the kids off the streets, and that's got to get spoke about a lot, if you ask me.
Well, you're right, because they're not just doing that, running the boxing club 3 or 4 times a week. They're going to shows. I'll give you an example. It was at the Scottish Championships that have just passed. There's a club up here in the northeast of Scotland who took their boxers down for 2 days, right? I don't know how many, I think there were half a dozen boxers. Half of them were boxing on the Saturday, and the others were boxing on the Sunday. The ones who were boxing on the Saturday were okay, they competed, but their club mates who were boxing the following day had to pay a tenner each to watch their club mates.
It's terrible. That's terrible.
And so you're thinking, are you trying to actually close clubs down? Yep. Because that's what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. You'll get guys that are going to be fed up and they're going to say, I can't afford this. A lot of guys are dipping in their own pockets to pay for this, that and the other. Things that they shouldn't. They should have a kitty, in my view. Boxing Scotland, instead of taking money, should be distributing the money they get from government through organisations like Sport Scotland and saying, right, we'll help you.
Yeah, they're getting that. They're getting that money for Sport Scotland, and they're charging the clubs at the shows the entrance fees. That's all wrong, if you ask me. It's ridiculous, Frank.
It's terrible.
Ridiculous.
It's terrible, and it's not good. And and while we've got to recognise that the elite boxers, well, I've got an issue with this. I was an elite boxer. You could call me, Dick McTaggart was an elite boxer. Well, you don't get him any more elite than Dick McTaggart. Ken Buchanan, when he was an amateur. There's so many, Bertie Scott in Glasgow, so many high quality who boxed Olympics, who boxed in the Commonwealth Games, who won ABA titles. They were elite boxers. They trained in their own gym 4 times a week after their work. Now we've got a scenario where, for some bizarre reason, in my view, we have elite boxers in the High Performance Centre in Glasgow who are, in effect, told that they need to be there every day. In other words, full time, without any pay. So, and this is a worrying scenario. I'm hearing things like boxers who have apprenticeships are told, no, you can't do this and have an apprenticeship. You can't go to university and be in the elite squad. And so you've got all this kind of thing weighing on a young man's mind, a young man who's kind of trying to set out on his road.
Plan.
And he's being told, you can't do this, you can't do that, And so my question is this. Do we really need a high performance centre? And the answer I always come up with again and again is no. Why can't these, what do these elite boxers get from being in the high performance centre that they can't get in their own gyms?
Do you feel this has to be looked at, Frank? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think there must be an incredible waste within boxing Scotland. And so you've got guys who, well, I'll tell you a story. I met not so long ago, at the end of last year, I met a director, a guy on the board of Boxing Scotland. By the way, apart from one, not one of the members on the board have any experience of boxing. And as far as I'm aware, none of them actually go to the amateur shows. So here's the question. What do they do? What does the board do, apart from handing over power to one or two guys? And then you've got to wonder, why do we need the performance centre? You know, it's a waste of money, and it's actually sucking up money from the clubs which they can't afford.
Yeah, it should go back to the old way, Frank, you reckon?
Yeah. I mean, this sounds terribly kind of negative, but I think my way would be positive. So if you can produce Olympic champions, British champions, Commonwealth Games, you know, guys like John McDermott in Glasgow, John McNair in Glasgow, all these wonderful fighters that came from all over Scotland, Dick McTaggart, my goodness me, from Dundee. If you can produce these boxers who performed and won at the highest level when they were doing it in their own clubs with their own coaches, now that's a key thing.
Yeah.
No, why would you want as a coach to take your star boxers and say to a stranger, which in effect is what the national coach would be to these guys, here you are, here's my best boxer, you take him from now on.
I think that's a very strong standpoint. If you're the trainer of that fighter, how can you put that trust in someone else that doesn't know them as better? You have to know the fighter. You need to know the fighter completely. What they do when they train. It's huge, and I think that rule should be changed, Frank, going forward.
I think I'm all for that. You see, to get that to wipe that out, but forget about the coach. What about the boxer? So you go and you box in a strange land with a strange trainer in your corner. It's not good. I've done it. You know, I understand that not every coach can go abroad because of the expense with his fighter. But if you're handing over your boxer on a daily basis, saying, right, you take over, and in effect you're waving goodbye to your own boxer. Maybe you've had him since he was a kid, and you've brought him up and you've taught him the proper way of doing things, and then you hand over to this guy and you wonder, is he going to improve him, or is he just going to make him worse?
It's a trust factor, Frank. We're in the hurt business. You have to, the guy in your corner has to believe in you, has to know you, what you eat, as I said, when you train, what you do best, what you don't do best.
Yeah.
He has to know you completely. You can't hand him to some stranger that you don't know. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
There's too many cooks involved, if you ask me, Frank. It's got to be the one trainer and the one fighter, not two and three. In people's ears, it's no good whatsoever.
See, I don't know what, I mean, I express ignorance here in terms of boxing Scotland. I don't know what they all do. I do not know on a 9-to-5 basis what they can possibly all do to merit what I'm told are kind of substantial salaries. Yeah. Now you've got, for each district, you've got a development officer. I have no idea what that development officer does, and neither, incidentally, do the board. Because when I met that director of the board, who was kind of keen to get me involved in some way, because I kept putting out the message on my social media channels to say, you know, you must start to recognise you're sucking the clubs dry. These guys are doing all the work. You're taking all the glory with the elite squad. And you've appointed development officers on reasonably good salaries, I'm told.
Oh, it's good money. I know the salaries these guys get, and it's ridiculous what's going on.
I said to this director, tell me, what does a development officer do? And he said, I have no idea. And I said, but you, as a board, have appointed this guy, and that guy, and another one. Yeah, and they're paid all this money. It's coming out the coffers. What do they do? I don't know. So there you are. There's money that's taken from clubs to given to jobs that the board of directors have no idea what goes on.
It's like taking to the poor and giving to the rich in boxing.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it, because these guys have got their salaries.
That's precisely it.